Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Monday Night Raw fucking sucked tonight. It was absolutely boring and dreadful, in my opinion. There is no saving this show. This show is completely hopeless. Just absolutely fucking awful. What do we get on the show tonight? We saw John Morrison versus Ricochet once again. We saw this last week. We saw in that very cool spot in last week's match where Ricochet ended up jumping off the top rope and delivered a crossbody to John Morrison, who was sitting on the barricade, and both of them went over the barricade. So that was an awesome spot in last week's match. But we've seen it again tonight. We saw this match again. We had a 8-woman tag. Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Eva Marie, and Piper Niven, or Doudrop, versus Nikki Cross. Oh, I'm sorry, not Nikki Cross anymore. Nikki Ash, because they had to change Nikki Cross's last name because supposedly, maybe, Karrion Kross from NXT is going to be on the main roster. He was given a tryout, and you can already tell with them changing Nikki Cross's last name and putting her as Nikki Ash. We can't have two people with the last name of Cross on the main roster. It just proves that they're going to be bringing Karrion Kross to the main roster soon. This proved it right there with them changing Nikki Cross's last name. Went from Cross to Nikki Ash now. So it was Nikki Ash, Naomi, Alexa Bliss, and Asuka. Fucking boring, which I will get to. Mustafa Ali versus Mansoor, we also saw. And we also saw Mace and T-Bar tonight. At this point, Mace and T-Bar, they should just sit in catering because they took on the Lucha House Party tonight, which I will get to talking about that later on. We have Matt Riddle versus AJ Styles, R-Truth and Jaxson Ryker versus Elias and Cedric Alexandra. I'm like, why is R-Truth in this match? It makes absolutely no fucking sense. And then in the main event, we saw New Day, Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston versus MVP and Bobby Lashley. So Monday Night Raw opened up tonight with Miz TV, with The Miz and John Morrison. And you already know, when the show opens with Miz TV, you can already tell where this show is going to actually head for the rest of the night. Completely downhill right from the start. So The Miz and John Morrison were in the ring. Miz ended up welcoming us to Miz TV. He ended up talking about his success with Money in the Bank to establish his bona fides for interviewing his guest, which he says his guest proclaims he will be Mr. Money in the Bank. And that is his best friend, John Morrison. So John Morrison got on the mic, and he ended up saying that he's going to win the briefcase at Money in the Bank. No, you're not. You're not winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. So Miz ended up introducing his actual guest for Miz TV. And that was Drew McIntyre. So McIntyre ended up making his way out. And McIntyre ended up saying that Miz is the reason he has a love-hate relationship with the Money in the Bank briefcase. He ended up saying since Money in the Bank is in Texas, he has to talk about the Alamo. He ended up saying that he has a distant relative of Davy Crockett. His great-great-great-grandma, Miriam McIntyre IV. He ended up saying that there are a lot of similarities between them. how they both like to make legendary stories. And he ended up saying that he's going to shove Morrison's head up Miz's ass. And just like Davy Crockett, he'd rather die in Texas than let anyone else win the Money in the Bank briefcase. Did I care what McIntyre had to say here? It was absolutely boring. So Ricochet then made his way out. So Miz ended up calling for a replay of Ricochet's reckless athleticism, or as he would say, the springboard crossbody to the floor from last week, where Ricochet ended up jumping off the top and delivered that springboard crossbody to John Morrison from the barricade, which was the highlight moment of their match last week on Monday Night Raw. So Ricochet ended up admitting that he's shook and that he knows Morrison is too. But he ended up saying that that was just a little taste of what he's willing to do to grab the Money in the Bank briefcase. So then Matt Riddle ended up making his way out. Matt Riddle, of course, made his way out on his scooter. His right foot was still taped up after last week, where he ended up slamming his foot into the ring steps. So Miz ended up asking Matt Riddle what he's doing. And he ended up saying that he's doing what he thought he was supposed to do. And that he's really high. And Matt Riddle said because he let his bro down last week, he's dedicating his Money in the Bank performance to his best friend, Randy Orton. Which Randy Orton wasn't on the show last week, and he wasn't on the show tonight. So this could be setting up Randy Orton versus Matt Riddle, where Randy Orton's going to come back. He's going to turn on Matt Riddle, and then we're going to get Randy Orton versus Matt Riddle at SummerSlam. So Riddle ended up talking about the date that he's going to take Randy on after he wins. So The Miz ended up yelling at Matt Riddle to shut up. So out came Styles and Omos, and The Miz was pissed off. He was complaining that this was not how the way he visioned this Miz TV going. So Styles ended up coming out, and he was complaining that the last chance match should have been a triple threat. And that it should have been a singles match between him and McIntyre. And given that he wasn't pinned in the match, he still thinks he deserves to be in Money in the Bank. So Matt Riddle was mocking Styles for hopping around, and he ended up offering Omos a high five. Because Riddle was like, "Oh, Omos, I'm taller like you now." Because Riddle was on top of the ladder. So Omos then knocks Riddle off the ladder. So Riddle was selling his foot injury. So Omos threw the ladder out of the ring. Riddle was clutching his leg. And Styles ended up kicking Riddle's ankle into the ropes. Ricochet ended up rushing over to help. And then Morrison ended up blindsiding Ricochet, but Ricochet ended up dumping Morrison on the floor. McIntyre ended up offering Matt Riddle a hand, and he ended up helping him up to his feet. And he then clotheslined Omos out to the floor. Ricochet then took John Morrison out with a triangle drop kick. And Ricochet ends up taking the dipstick, not a dripstick, which they're calling it. I'm calling it a dipstick. He ends up taking the dipstick, breaks it over his knee. And that was how the segment ended. But this was terrible. This was a awful opening to Raw with this whole Miz TV segment where we have all the Money in the Bank guys in there. Just Absolutely fucking terrible. It was like a circus with this segment. Absolutely awful. And then we had the first match of the night, which was Ricochet versus John Morrison. This was a rematch from last week, which last week the match ended in a double countout, of course, because after Ricochet ended up doing that springboard crossbody from the top rope, took out Morrison over the barricade. But this match, it was the same thing, nothing special. I have to say that last week's match between the both of them was better. But the match started with Ricochet going to work on Morrison. The Miz was watching from ringside. Ricochet got an early 2 count on Morrison. Ricochet ended up beating Morrison down in the corner, started kicking at Morrison. And Ricochet then nailed a clothesline to Morrison. He ended up slamming Morrison, dropped an elbow, and he went for the cover, which Morrison kicked out too. So Morrison ended up blocking a shot from Ricochet, but Ricochet turned it around and delivered a forearm. Morrison started unloading the corner to Ricochet. He ended up slingshotting Ricochet under the bottom rope. Morrison started grounding Ricochet with a headlock, which he ended up fighting back. Ricochet started delivering some chops to Morrison, but Morrison ended up countering with a neck breaker. Went for the cover, which Ricochet kicked out too. And Morrison ended up beating Ricochet back around, but Ricochet ended up getting sent out to the floor. So Ricochet started tangling with The Miz in his wheelchair. Morrison then powerbombs Ricochet into the barricade as Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we saw Morrison in control of the match. He was kicking away at Ricochet in the corner. Ricochet fighted out of the corner, but Morrison ended up taking him down. Morrison started mounting Ricochet with some strikes and then some stomps. So Morrison then ended up missing the kick. He ended up getting rolled up by Ricochet, which Morrison kicked out too. Ricochet delivered another roll up to Morrison, which Morrison kicked out too. So Morrison ended up countering Ricochet and delivered a Spanish fly, a nice Spanish fly, and he went for the cover, which Ricochet kicked out too. So The Miz didn't like that, so he was yelling at the referee over that because he thought that would have been a 3. So there was a point where Ricochet ended up dropping Morrison with a tornado DDT, which looked cool. So Miz ended up trying to spray Ricochet with the dipstick, and it annoyed Ricochet. Morrison tried to capitalize on that, but he couldn't get the pin on Ricochet. So Morrison then delivered a running knee. Morrison then missed a elbow drop on the edge of the apron. Ricochet ended up charging for a flying crossbody, but both him and Morrison ended up taking on the ropes, and they both fell out to the floor. So the referee started counting. Morrison got back into the ring. Miz ended up using his wheelchair to block Ricochet from getting back into the ring. So because of that, the referee ended up counting to 10. So Morrison ended up winning the match by count out because of the Miz using his wheelchair to not let Ricochet get back into the ring. So Morrison wins by count out. Post-match, Morrison ended up standing tall in the ring. Ricochet ended up recovering at ringside. Morrison was pushing the Miz up the ramp in a wheelchair. And that was that. But nothing special happened in this match. Their match from last week was much better. So then we had Jinder Mahal. Yes, Jinder Mahal was on the show tonight. As if this show couldn't get any more worse. So Jinder Mahal ended up driving on his motorcycle. So WWE is trying to have Jinder Mahal be all cool. And the fans are going to be like, oh, look at Jinder Mahal riding on the motorcycle. Oh, They're making him look cool. Really? Really? Jinder Mahal is cool? So he was driving his motorcycle into the Thunderdome backstage. And we had his two buddies, Veer and Shanky, end up greeting him there. So Kevin Patrick end up approaching Jinder Mahal. Kevin Patrick end up asking Jinder on comments for his match tonight with Drew McIntyre. So Jinder ended up saying to Kevin Patrick that him and McIntyre were close and that they were good friends and that he was a good tag team partner. He ended up saying that McIntyre was with him when he bought his motorcycle to celebrate one of his many WWE Championship wins. He ended up saying that he texted McIntyre earlier to go riding with him for old time's sake. He ended up saying that it took McIntyre 3 days to respond to his text and that he couldn't even spell out his response. So McIntyre ended up saying that McIntyre is in Money in the Bank, but he should be in the match as well. No, we don't need you in the Money in the Bank match. It had Jinder Mahal in the Money in the Bank match. He would not be winning. We all know that Jinder Mahal, even if he was put in the Money in the Bank match, he would not win it. He would be the least favorite going into the match if he was in Money in the Bank. So, but nobody wants to see Jinder Mahal in Money in the Bank. So Jinder ended up saying that is why he demanded the match with McIntyre. He ended up saying that he has always been better than McIntyre. Really? Really now? Better than McIntyre? You kidding me? And that he ended up saying that he will prove that later on tonight. Yeah, a lot of people will want to forget that you were the WWE champion back in 2017. How he was a WWE champion and he practically killed SmackDown in that year. Jinder Mahal was one of the worst WWE champions of all time. So we had that later on tonight. Drew McIntyre versus Jinder Mahal. And then we had Reginald, Nia Jax, and Shayna Baszler backstage. And they were talking about Donut Drop, or Doudrop, Piper Niven. So Alexa Bliss was seen in the background. And this is what we saw last week, where we saw Nia Jax, Reginald, Shayna Baszler backstage. They were talking. Alexa Bliss was shown in the background just staring at them. Same thing that we've seen this week. But Reginald was the only one who saw Alexa Bliss in the background. So Shayna Baszler was yelling at Reginald, saying that she's had enough. She kept telling Reginald to get himself together. So Nia Jax ended up defending Reginald, and she ended up saying that they all just want to get through this match because things have been tough. So all three of them walk off. Alexa Bliss was still standing there in the background. And that was that. So then we had Asuka, Nikki Ash, the stand back, there's a butterfly coming through, and Naomi backstage. Naomi said that she is happy for Nikki's new look. I'm sorry. Nikki's new look in this superhero thing is embarrassing. It is absolutely embarrassing. That's why we should all go, stand back. There's a butterfly coming through. So Asuka ended up saying that she always wanted to team with a superhero. So Nikki was like, oh, I'm not a superhero like Black Widow. She's almost a superhero. She ended up beginning to believe in herself and that she has a chance at winning Money in the Bank. So Naomi ended up saying that she's winning Money in the Bank. So Asuka was like, oh, she's going to win. So Nikki Ash ended up heading out to the ring. And that was that. Alexa Bliss ended up appearing. And then we had this 8-woman tag team match, which was fucking terrible. Alexa Bliss, Nikki Ash, Asuka, and Naomi versus Eva Marie, Doudrop, Nia Jax, and Shayna Baszler. Or Doudrop, Piper Niven. So we had Nikki Ash end up coming out first. And then Asuka, Naomi, and then Alexa Bliss came out. And Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler came out along with Reginald. And then Eva Marie and Piper Niven, or Doudrop, they ended up coming out. This match was terrible. This match was absolutely boring. Naomi ended up starting off the match with Piper Niven. And Eva Marie ended up tagging in. Her and Naomi and Eva Marie end up taking it into the corner. Naomi ended up shoving her away. Eva Marie delivered a forearm, and she ended up tagging in Piper Niven. Naomi ended up drop kicking Piper Niven off the apron out to the floor. Naomi then ended up taking out Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler on the outside. Asuka ended up delivering a hip attack off the apron to Piper Niven. So Nikki Ash ended up delivering a plancha to Piper Niven. So Eva Marie was in the ring, and she ended up turning around, and Alexa Bliss was standing behind her. So Alexa Bliss ended up screaming at Eva Marie. So Eva Marie ended up going down out to the floor. Stupid. Absolutely stupid. As Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Alexa Bliss was hitting Piper Niven with forearms. Piper Niven ended up decking her. And Alexa Bliss ended up running the ropes. She ended up leaping onto the ropes to pose. And she was staring at Piper Niven. Nikki Ash ended up tagging in, but Piper Niven ended up ragdolling Nikki Ash. So Nikki Ash ended up drop kicking Piper Niven to one knee. Asuka ended up coming in, started unloading on Piper Niven with some kicks. And there's a point later on where Alexa Bliss was starting to put Reginald in a trance again. So at the end of the match, we had Eva Marie, Piper Niven, Nia Jax, and Shayna Baszler end up winning the match because we had Nikki Ash in there, and Nia Jax was the legal person in there because Shayna Baszler and Nikki Ash were tangling. So Nikki Ash didn't realize that Nia Jax was the legal woman in the match. So Nikki Ash ended up fighting out of a Samoan drop, and her and Nia Jax were tangling. Nia Jax then ends up nailing the Samoan drop to Nikki Ash. Nia Jax ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Eva Marie, Piper Niven, or Doudrop, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler ended up winning the match. Post-match, Eva Marie ended up getting on the mic, and she ended up announcing herself as the winner. Once again, no, you weren't the winner. So Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler weren't happy. Piper Niven ended up standing with Eva Marie at ringside. And that was that. And there was a point in the match where Jimmy Smith on commentary botched Nia Jax's name. He ended up calling Nia Jax Nikki Jax. Yeah, Nikki Jax. As said by Jimmy Smith on commentary. This 8-women's tag team match was fucking terrible. Boring. and Eva Marie needs to get the hell off of TV. I can't wait for fans to come back in 2 weeks and boo the shit out of her. I cannot wait. So then we saw MVP and Bobby Lashley backstage. They were partying up with the ladies. Kevin Patrick ended up coming in, and Kevin Patrick ended up asking why the main event was changed to a tag team match. So MVP ended up asking how Kevin Patrick always keeps getting in here every single week. MVP ended up saying that he changed the match because Xavier Woods doesn't deserve to be in the ring with the WWE Champion. So he reminded us how Lashley dominated Xavier Woods the last time. So MVP went on about how he's been disrespected by the New Day. So Bobby Lashley then snatched the mic. He ended up saying that he eviscerated Drew McIntyre and Xavier Woods in back-to-back Hell in a Cell matches, and that he took a vacation last week, and that he's going to send the New Day on a permanent vacation. So Bobby Lashley ended up going on about Kofi Kingston thinking that he has a shot at winning the WWE Championship at Money in the Bank. Lashley ended up saying that he's going to hurt Kofi because they're the hurt business, and that's what they do. So Lashley then tossed the mic back at Kevin Patrick, and the ladies were taunting Kevin Patrick, and that was that. So. And now we had Mustafa Ali versus Mansoor. And I knew this match was going to be happening because Mustafa Ali was telling Mansoor, never trust anybody here. And I could tell that, when they were doing that, it was setting up for a match against these two. So Mustafa Ali ended up coming out first. He got new entrance stuff and some new entrance music. So we had Mansoor end up coming out, and we saw a post segment after Raw went off the air from last week. So Mansoor was confronting Mustafa Ali, asking why he eliminated him in the Battle Royal. So Mustafa Ali ended up telling Mansoor that he doesn't want Mansoor to end up like him. So that was the post segment that we saw last week after Monday Night Raw went off the air. It was on WWE.com. So the match was a quick match. So they ended up going at it. They started trading holds. Mansoor was working on Mustafa Ali's arm. Ali ended up turning it back around and took down Mansoor by his arm. Ali then took Mansoor into the corner and he started putting him down. He was yelling some advice to Mansoor. Ali ended up dropping Mansoor with a shoulder and went for a quick pin attempt. Ali delivered a arm drag takedown into a chin lock, and he was yelling more stuff at Mansoor. So at the end of the match, Mustafa Ali ended up suckering Mansoor and rolled him up for the pin out of nowhere. And that was that. Mustafa Ali ended up winning the match. Overall, quick match. So post-match, Mustafa Ali, he was continuing to yell advice at Mansoor. And that was that. So then we saw Sarah Schreiber. Sarah Schreiber ended up approaching Drew McIntyre, and she ended up asking McIntyre about what Jinder Mahal said earlier. McIntyre ended up saying he has a few words for Jinder. and he ended up bringing out his sword. So he ends up telling the story about the sword, how it's made of a tooth from the Loch Ness Monster. So he ends up telling the story of a Scottish warrior knocking the tooth out of the Loch Ness Monster with a claymore. He ends up saying that his win over Jinder Mahal and his win at Money in the Bank was also predicted at that time. So that was what McIntyre had to say, but who cares? Who cares what the sword is made out of? And the story about the sword. Are you kidding? Are you kidding that the sword is made up of a tooth from the Loch Ness Monster? Are you fucking kidding me? Awful. Absolutely awful. There's no way anybody could buy that the sword is made from a tooth from the Loch Ness Monster. It's laughable. So then we had Drew McIntyre versus Jinder Mahal. This was boring. This sucked. So we had Drew McIntyre end up coming out first, and then Jinder Mahal came out with his buddies, Veer and Shanky. I can't believe those names. Veer and Shanky. They're the new Bollywood boys. They're the new Singh brothers for Jinder Mahal. So even though the Singh brothers got released, though, but Veer and Shanky, they're the new Singh brothers for Jinder Mahal. In my opinion. So the match ended up starting. They end up locking up. Both of them go to the ropes and into the corner. McIntyre ended up backing off as the referee got in between him and Mahal. Jinder ended up nailing the shoulder to McIntyre. McIntyre ended up coming back with a shoulder of his own, which knocked Jinder down. Jinder then applied a headlock to McIntyre. So McIntyre ended up dropping him with another shoulder. Mahal ended up kicking McIntyre out of the corner, working it into another corner. Started beating McIntyre down. McIntyre ended up coming out of the corner, delivered a clothesline to Jinder Mahal. McIntyre then took Jinder back into the corner, started working on him. So Jinder fought back, dropped McIntyre with a knee to his gut, and delivered a forearm. They were brawling in the corner as the referee had to back McIntyre away. So Mahal ended up following up and nailed a suplex on McIntyre. Jinder ended up kicking McIntyre in the face. And there was a point where Jinder ended up charging at McIntyre, but McIntyre ended up launching McIntyre overhead with a suplex. Jinder then ended up rolling out to the floor to regroup. McIntyre ended up following it up, and Jinder ended up jabbing McIntyre in the throat. Jinder then ended up picking up McIntyre, ended up dropping him on top of the announce table with a suplex, and Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back, Jinder Mahal was in control of the match, had McIntyre grounded in the middle of the ring. McIntyre was fighting back, started delivering some chops to Mahal. And at the end of the match, we had McIntyre waiting for Jinder to get back up because McIntyre dropped him with the Future Shock DDT. So McIntyre was waiting for Mahal to get back up. And then we had Veer end up attacking from the apron. And McIntyre ended up knocking him off. Shanky ended up coming into the ring to attack McIntyre, and that caused a disqualification. So Drew McIntyre won the match by disqualification. So post-match, McIntyre kept on fighting until he got triple teamed by Mahal, Veer, and Shanky. So Jinder ended up leveling McIntyre with a super kick. We just had all three of them continue to attack McIntyre. McIntyre was sent shoulder first into the corner. Jinder then ended up dropping McIntyre with the Colossus. And Jinder ended up running out of the ring straight up the ramp. And Jinder, Veer, and Shanky were on the stage. Jinder had McIntyre's sword. Jinder ended up saying that McIntyre took away his Money in the Bank opportunity. So he will take away a piece of McIntyre's family history, his sword. So pretty much that was that, though. But overall, match was terrible. Match was slow and boring. So then we saw Kevin Patrick backstage with the New Day, Xavier Woods, and Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston ended up dismissing the idea that they have adjusted their strategy for MVP and Bobby Lashley. So he ended up telling the New Day being named the #1 WWE tag team of all time. And Xavier Woods ended up talking about fans being back in the crowd at Money in the Bank, and how they will see Kofi leave Money in the Bank with the WWE Championship. Kofi Kingston, he's not winning the WWE Championship. We're not going to have Kofi Mania 2. So fans are like, oh yeah, we're going to see Kofi win the WWE Championship on Money in the Bank. And it's going to be Kofi Mania 2 once again. No, Kofi Kingston is not winning the WWE Championship. Forget about Kofi Mania 2 ever happening. So Kofi ended up saying that he proved before that anything is possible. And he's about to prove it again. So that was that. So, but like I said, Kofi Kingston is not winning the WWE Championship at Money in the Bank. So fans could forget about that. Kofi Mania is not happening again. And then we had Mace and T-Bar versus the Lucha House Party. Mace and T-Bar and the Lucha House Party. Does this sound like a good match? No. Match sucked. Mace and T-Bar, when are they going to change their names? When is WWE going to change their names back to their original names? You know, T-Bar as Dominic Dijakovic, Mace, Dio Madden. When is that happening? In WWE's mind, oh yeah, they're never going to change their names back to their original names. So we're still going to call them Mace and T-Bar. Sorry about that, but I was saying they're never going to change their names back to Dio Madden and Dominic Dijakovic. Why even keep their names like this still? Retribution has been broken up for how long already? Lucha House Party ended up winning the match. Lindsay ended up getting the pin on T-Bar. And that was that. Overall, terrible match. And then we had Matt Riddle backstage. Matt Riddle was checking on his toes, and he was like this. He was like he was like that. I'm surprised he didn't do This Little Piggy, his own version of This Little Piggy, where he's like, this little piggy is Randy Orton. This little piggy is AJ Styles. This little piggy is Omos. And this little piggy is my weed. I'm surprised he didn't do that. So Damian Priest ended up walking up to Matt Riddle. He greeted Matt Riddle. He was asking Riddle how he's doing after what happened earlier where Omos ended up pushing the ladder and Riddle ended up falling off, selling the foot injury. So Riddle ended up saying that he's doing fine. So Riddle ended up telling Damian Priest just a random story. Priest wasn't sure how that has anything to do with tonight. He ended up saying that the hurt ankle could affect Riddle's match and his chances in Money in the Bank. So Riddle ended up going on with his story, and he ended up telling Damian Priest, oh, I'm not afraid of heights, or ladders, or styles. He ended up saying that he bounced back from a bad fall before, and that he's going to show Styles and everyone else, and including his buddy Randy Orton, wherever he is, that he can get the job done, and do it with the 3 most dangerous letters: RK Bro. So Matt Riddle ended up walking off, and that was that. So then we had AJ Styles versus Matt Riddle. This was a decent match. It wasn't a bad match. Matt Riddle is the only decent thing about Monday Night Raw. Him and Randy Orton. So Riddle ended up coming out later after Styles and Omos, because they came out first, of course, because they're the Raw Tag Team Champions. So Matt Riddle then made his way out, and the match ended up starting. Styles ended up asking Riddle if he's crazy competing. So Riddle starts limping around. They start taunting each other. Styles ended up going for a takedown, but Riddle ended up avoiding it. Riddle ended up going for a takedown, and Styles ended up blocking an armbar, and he got to the bottom rope. Him and Matt Riddle started tangling some more. Styles ended up taking Riddle down with a kick. So Styles ended up catching another leg, started taking Matt Riddle down. He went to work on Riddle's injured foot. So Riddle ended up getting up. He started hopping to the ropes. Styles ended up kicking the injured foot again. So Riddle ended up going down. Styles then approached Matt Riddle, and Riddle ended up performing a takedown to launch Styles over the top rope out to the floor. So Styles ended up coming back up to the apron, but Riddle ended up kicking him with his injured foot. So Styles ended up slamming the foot into the rope, and Riddle ended up going back down, selling the injury. So we had later on, Styles ended up going for the Styles Clash, and we had Ivar and Eric appear on the other side of the barricade. This was towards the end of the match. I forgot to mention there was a point where Omos ended up taking advantage because Styles started unloading while Riddle was down. The referee ended up backing Styles off. So Omos ended up taking advantage, and he ended up sweeping Riddle's injured foot out. So Riddle ended up going down in pain again. But going back to what happened at the end of the match, Ivar and Eric, the Viking Raiders, ended up appearing on the other side of the barricade, and they were stalking Omos. So Styles was distracted. Riddle ended up taking advantage of the distraction. He ended up rolling up Styles. And there you go. Matt Riddle ended up winning the match. Post-match, Riddle ended up joining the Viking Raiders on the ramp as AJ Styles was shocked. So that was that. So next week on Raw, they end up announcing that I think it's going to be Eric is going to be taking on Omos, and Ivar is going to be taking on Styles. So that's set for next week on Raw. So we're not getting a tag team match. We're getting just one-on-one matches. And then we had Charlotte Flair end up standing in the ring. She was giving us a medical update on her after Rhea Ripley ended up taking out her knee last week. So Charlotte was in the ring. She had a crutch in hand. Corey Graves ended up saying that Charlotte is badly injured. So Charlotte was on the mic, and she ended up saying that it's shocking to see her like this after what Rhea Ripley did last week. She ended up talking about how the NBA playoffs are hurt due to injuries. She ended up saying what bigger news is she may miss her shot at the Royal Women's Championship at Money in the Bank. So she ended up going on about Rhea Ripley using her own moves and using underhanded tactics to keep the title. She kept saying that nobody is better than her. Nobody is better than Charlotte. So out came Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley, she was also using a crutch, and Rhea Ripley was mocking Charlotte as if she was injured, as if Rhea Ripley was injured. So Rhea Ripley was struggling to get into the ring with the crutch. Rhea Ripley ended up asking for help, and Staffer ended up helping her through the ropes. So Charlotte ended up accusing Rhea Ripley of also taking her entrance. So Rhea Ripley ended up saying that she sees right through Charlotte. She ended up saying that she can play her game better. So Rhea Ripley ended up saying that Charlotte is just being a little drama queen. Charlotte and Rhea Ripley end up kicking each other's crutches away at the same time. So they end up sizing each other up. They were having some words. Looked like they were getting ready to fight. And both of them end up picking up the crutches. Charlotte ended up swinging the crutch at Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley ended up ducking. Charlotte then ended up ducking as Rhea Ripley ended up swinging the crutch. So they both end up swinging the crutches and they collide. They kept on swinging at each other, but they failed to hit one another. I'm like, what is this, children? This is children in the ring, just fighting with crutches. They're like, yeah, I'm going to hit you. No, I'm going to hit you. I'm going to duck. And now I duck. So fucking childish. So Charlotte ended up knocking Rhea Ripley's crutch to the mat. She ended up kicking it out of the way. Rhea Ripley ended up ducking the crutch shot, picked her crutch back up. She swings it, hits Charlotte's crutch, and then she ends up jabbing Charlotte in the gut with the crutch. Rhea Ripley ended up going to hit Charlotte in the back with the crutch, but Charlotte ended up rolling out of the ring. And Charlotte was taunting Rhea Ripley from the ramp. And that was that. But this was such an awful segment. I'm like, Charlotte and Rhea Ripley are children here with the crutches. I'm like, oh, I'm going to hit it. No, I'm going to hit mine. Awful. Absolutely awful. Don't even care about Charlotte and Rhea Ripley again. And then we had Elias and Cedric Alexander versus Jaxson, Ryker, and R-Truth. Why is Cedric Alexander and R-Truth in this? Doesn't make any sense. Why is R-Truth teaming with Jaxson Ryker? Why is Cedric Alexander tagging with Elias? What do R-Truth and Cedric Alexander have to do with Elias and Jaxson Ryker's feud? Doesn't make any fucking sense. So before the match began, Akira Tozawa ended up running into the ring with a referee. R-Truth ended up rolling up Akira Tozawa, and Tozawa ended up kicking out at 2. Then Garza, Angel Garza, Shelton Benjamin, Drew Gulak, and others ended up chasing Tozawa around the ring. So we got the circus of guys want to get their hands on the Jobber Ninja Turtle 24/7 title. Can we fucking retire the 24/7 title? I'm tired of seeing this title on TV. Please, retire it. So R-Truth ended up joining the circus. He abandoned Jaxson Ryker. So Jaxson Ryker was left alone, and it became a handicap match. So Jaxson Ryker ended up winning this. So who cares? Who cares for this match? This match was god-awful. And Elias ended up backing off the apron. He walked out on Cedric Alexander. Who cares? So Bobby Lashley was backstage. He was doing pull-ups. MVP was encouraging him. Kevin Patrick ended up approaching them for comments. But MVP ends up shutting Kevin Patrick up. He ended up asking Kevin Patrick if this looks like a man that has lost his edge. He was referring to Bobby Lashley. So Lashley was staring straight ahead at the camera. And that was that. So Then we had the main event. The New Day. Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston versus Bobby Lashley and MVP. This match was okay. This was an okay main event. So, the match started off with MVP and Xavier Woods. They end up locking up. MVP went to work on Xavier Woods' arm, started beating Xavier Woods around. Woods ended up countering, started being on MVP's arm. MVP ended up dropping Xavier Woods, started talking trash at him, and then it was back and forth between them. Xavier Woods ended up taking MVP's knee out with a chop block. Xavier Woods ended up mounting MVP on the mat, started working him over with some strikes. Kofi ended up tagging in. Xavier Woods ended up stopping MVP from tagging. Kofi ended up coming in off the top, ended up hitting MVP's knee for a quick pin attempt. So Lashley ended up delivering a neck breaker to Kofi. So Kofi ended up countering, dropped Bobby Lashley, and then booted him. So at the end of the match, we had MVP end up going for the playmaker on Kofi. Kofi ended up countering that, ended up nailing the Trouble in Paradise on MVP. So Kofi went for the cover, and there you go. The New Day end up winning the match. Post-match, the New Day ended up heading up to the stage. Lashley was seething as he ended up helping MVP up from the mat. And that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air tonight. But overall, this was an okay match between the New Day and MVP and Bobby Lashley. But Monday Night Raw tonight was absolutely fucking terrible. Terrible show tonight. And boring. But anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's Monday Night Raw. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all on Wednesday for Dynamite, which is going to be in Miami, Florida. It's Road Rager, and the card is looking good. So I will see you all on Wednesday for Dynamite.